Imagine walking into a familiar place, a cafe you've always visited, a gathering with old friends, a family dinner. Everything looks the same, but somehow, it feels different. Conversations flow, yet not quite like before. The smiles are brief, the eye contact fleeting. There's an unspoken shift in the air, something you can't quite put your finger on. And then, the unsettling thought crosses your mind. Is it me who has changed? Or has the world around me started seeing me differently? Time has a quiet way of transforming, not just who we are, but how others perceive us. Subtle details, almost invisible at first, begin to shape the way people interact with you. The warmth that once surrounded you starts to dim. Invitations become less frequent. The effortless connections you once had now require effort. And before you even realize it, an invisible wall has formed between you and the rest of the world. But here's what no one tells you. This barrier doesn't appear overnight. It builds slowly, silently, in ways that are nearly impossible to notice until they've already taken hold. And the most surprising part? This change isn't just in the expressions you make, or the ones you no longer do. It's in what you're communicating without even realizing it. If you've ever felt this shift, if you've ever wondered why your interactions no longer feel the way they used to, pay close attention. Because what you're about to discover might completely change the way you see yourself and how the world responds to you. Now, let's get into it. The invisible wall. How aging makes you harder to approach. There's a moment in life when something shifts. It's subtle, almost imperceptible at first. You enter a room, you sit among familiar faces, yet something feels different. People don't greet you as warmly as before. Conversations feel shorter. Invitations become less frequent. It's not loneliness, at least not in the way you once understood it. It's something else, a quiet distance that wasn't there before. And the most unsettling part? You can't quite figure out when it started. Aging changes us in ways we don't always see, but others do. And one of the most striking transformations is the way people perceive us, often without us realizing it. Research from Harvard University has shown that as people get older, their facial expressions naturally become less dynamic. The micro-expressions that once made you look approachable, those fleeting smiles, raised eyebrows, and curious glances, begin to fade. You might still feel just as warm and open inside, but the world around you starts interpreting you differently. To a younger person, your neutral face may now seem serious, distant, even intimidating. It's not that people don't like you, it's that, subconsciously, they feel less invited in. And this isn't just about facial expressions. As we age, our social behavior subtly shifts in ways that reinforce this distance. Studies from Stanford University on socio-emotional selectivity theory explain that as people get older, they naturally become more selective about who they spend time with. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a defense mechanism, a way of prioritizing meaningful relationships over shallow interactions. But to the outside world, this selectiveness can look like withdrawal. You're not pulling away, but to others it feels like you are. Then there's the change in social dynamics. Younger people tend to assume that older adults are less interested in modern trends, new conversations, or different perspectives. It's not a conscious bias, but a deeply ingrained psychological shortcut. Social psychologists have found that people tend to gravitate toward those they perceive as similar to themselves. This means that as you age, the younger generation may unconsciously exclude you from conversations, simply because they assume you won't relate. You notice it happening, you sense the shift, but it's nearly impossible to pinpoint why. And here's where the real impact comes in. As these micro-barriers build up over time, they create an invisible wall, one that you didn't choose to build, but one that now surrounds you. You might wonder why social interactions don't flow as effortlessly as they once did. You might even start questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? Have I changed? In reality, it's not about something you did. It's about the silent, unspoken ways aging reshapes human connection. But the consequences of this shift go deeper than just perception. Loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's a silent epidemic. A study from the New York Times found that nearly 1/3 of older adults report feeling socially isolated. And this isn't just an emotional experience. It has real, tangible health effects. Chronic loneliness has been linked to higher risks of heart disease, dementia, and even premature death. The paradox is cruel. Just as we reach a stage in life where we have the most wisdom, experience, and stories to share, society slowly begins to listen less. But here's the part no one tells you. This invisible wall isn't unbreakable. The way others perceive you may change, but that doesn't mean you have to fade into the background. Small intentional actions, expressing warmth through body language, making the first move in conversations, challenging the assumptions of distance, can begin to dissolve the barriers. The key isn't waiting for the world to come to you. It's reminding the world that you're still very much here. And yet this is only one of the silent transformations that happen with age. There's something else, something even more personal. It's a shift that doesn't just affect how others see you. It changes how you see yourself, and it's something no one warns you about. When I started reflecting on this topic, I realized how silently this change happens. You don't notice when this invisible wall begins to form, but suddenly interactions aren't the same anymore. People seem a little more distant, conversations feel shorter, and the warmth that once surrounded you starts to fade. But understanding this process changes everything, because in the end, knowing that this happens gives you the power to do something about it. That's why I brought this content to you today, so this information reaches those who truly need it. If this video made you see things differently, if something here resonated with you, take a moment now to hit the like button. It might seem like a small gesture, but it helps this knowledge reach even more people who may be going through the same thing without even realizing it. So before we move on, go ahead and click like. This tells YouTube that this content matters and ensures that more people have access to these important insights. Let's spread this message together. Hit that button now. The stubborn independence trap. Why you refuse help even when you need it. There's a quiet battle that begins to unfold as you age, one that no one talks about yet almost everyone experiences. It starts as a subtle resistance, a small hesitation when someone offers to carry something for you, help you up a step, or offer advice on something you've done 1,000 times before. I've got it, you say. I don't need help. At first, it's just instinct, a reflex. But as the years go by, that simple refusal turns into something deeper, something almost sacred. Independence, control, the unshakable belief that you can handle things on your own, even when the signs suggest otherwise. But here's the catch. The very thing that makes you feel strong might be the thing that's pushing others away. Studies from Stanford University show that autonomy is one of the most fundamental psychological needs. Losing control over one's own life, even in small ways, can trigger feelings of helplessness, frustration, and even depression. This is why, for many older adults, accepting help feels like surrender. It's not about the physical act of receiving assistance. It's about what that assistance represents. To accept help is to acknowledge that something has changed, that you're no longer as capable as you once were. That time is, in some way, catching up to you, and that realization is terrifying. But the real problem isn't just internal. It's how this mindset affects your relationships. Family members notice when you struggle but refuse to admit it. They see you insist on climbing that ladder, lifting that box, or handling things alone, even when there's risk involved. At first, they offer help, but when they're repeatedly turned down, they start stepping back. Not out of indifference, but out of respect for your pride. And so, slowly, an invisible wall begins to form, not because they don't care, but because they don't want to upset you. And then one day you might start wondering why people offer help less often, why your loved ones don't insist the way they used to, why there's a quiet frustration in their voice when they watch you struggle. The answer? They're not giving up on you. They just don't know how to navigate the fine line between respecting your independence and protecting your well-being. A report from the New York Times highlights a painful reality. Older adults who resist assistance are more likely to experience avoidable injuries, longer recovery times, and increased stress levels. The irony is cruel. The refusal to accept small forms of help today often leads to a future where help is no longer optional. A small fall turns into a broken bone. A missed medical checkup turns into an emergency. The desire to prove you can still handle everything on your own can, without warning, take away the very independence you're fighting so hard to protect. But there's something even more profound happening beneath the surface, something that makes this behavior even harder to change. It's the quiet grief that comes with aging, the unspoken loss of the person you used to be. You don't just resist help because you want to prove you're still strong. You resist it because accepting help means acknowledging that things are different now, and that's a reality no one prepares you for. Yet there's a shift that happens when you begin to see independence in a new way. True independence isn't about refusing help at all costs. It's about knowing when to accept it in a way that allows you to keep living life on your own terms. It's about understanding that letting people in doesn't make you weaker. It makes you stronger because it builds deeper connections, trust, and support systems that will keep you independent for longer. But this isn't the only thing that changes with age. There's one more transformation that happens, a shift that's even more subtle yet just as powerful, and it has to do with how you experience life itself. It's the reason why the world starts to feel smaller, less exciting, more predictable, and if you're not careful, it can quietly steal away the very joy that makes life worth living. Aging changes more than just how others see you. It transforms how you see yourself. And one of the hardest parts of this process is realizing that holding onto independence at all costs can sometimes push people away, even when they want to help. It's a delicate balance, and many struggle with it in silence. But here's the thing, you're not alone in this. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever experienced this feeling? The quiet resistance to help? The frustration of wanting to do things on your own, even when it's harder than before? Or maybe you've seen this happening with a loved one. I want to hear from you. Your perspective matters, and your story could help someone else going through the same thing. Leave a comment below and tell me, what part of this discussion resonated with you the most? And more importantly, if this video made you think, chances are it can do the same for someone else. So don't keep it to yourself. Share this with a friend, a family member, or anyone who might need to hear it. Knowledge grows when it's shared. Let's start this conversation together. Drop a comment and send this video to someone who needs it. The comfort trap. Why trying new things feels harder than ever. There was a time when life felt full of possibilities. A time when stepping into the unknown wasn't just exciting. It was second nature. New places, new experiences, new people, new challenges. They were all part of the adventure. But at some point, without even realizing it, things began to change. The pull toward the familiar became stronger. The desire to explore started fading. The thought of trying something different, whether it's a new restaurant, a new hobby, or even a new way of thinking, began to feel more like a hassle than an opportunity. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, life became routine, safe, predictable, and yet, something feels missing. This shift isn't just a preference, it's biological. Researchers at Oxford University have found that as people age, the brain's dopamine system naturally declines. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, curiosity, and the thrill of experiencing something new. When its levels drop, things that once brought excitement start to feel meh. This is why many older adults stick to the same habits, the same conversations, the same paths they've walked for years. It's not that they consciously choose comfort over novelty, it's that their brain subtly makes the decision for them. But here's where it gets dangerous. While routines create a sense of stability, they can also create a prison, one where every day starts blending into the next. Studies from Psychology Today reveal that older adults who actively seek out novelty, who challenge their routines and push themselves outside of their comfort zones, maintain stronger cognitive function and emotional well-being. In other words, staying in the same patterns isn't just limiting, it's aging you faster. Yet, breaking free from this cycle isn't easy. Over time, the brain strengthens the pathways associated with habitual behaviors. This means that making a change, however small, requires more mental effort than before. That's why trying something as simple as learning a new skill or visiting an unfamiliar place can feel overwhelming. It's not just psychological, it's neurological. The longer you stay in your comfort zone, the harder it becomes to leave. And then there's the social aspect. The older you get, the more people expect you to stay the same. Family members assume you like the same things you always have. Friends expect you to hold the same opinions, stick to the same habits, and keep the same routine. Without realizing it, the people around you reinforce the idea that change is unnecessary, that who you are today is who you'll always be. And so, the world shrinks. Not because it has to, but because it feels easier that way. But here's the truth no one talks about. The moment you stop seeking new experiences, a part of you begins to disappear. The part that once felt alive, curious, engaged. The part that made life feel full. And the most painful realization? That fullness was never taken from you. You simply stopped reaching for it. But it doesn't have to stay this way. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, doesn't vanish with age. It simply needs to be activated. The moment you start pushing back against routine, no matter how small the step, your brain responds. It wakes up, it adapts, it grows. A study from Harvard Medical School found that older adults who regularly engage in mentally and physically stimulating activities, not just crossword puzzles, but real, immersive experiences, show significant improvements in memory, decision-making, and even overall happiness. And that's the secret. Growth isn't just for the young. Reinvention isn't just for a specific stage of life. The choice to step outside of comfort, to embrace the unfamiliar, to challenge your mind, to invite new experiences, isn't something that disappears with age. It's something that keeps you alive. So the real question is, when was the last time you did something for the first time? If that question feels uncomfortable, that's exactly why it needs to be asked. Because on the other side of that discomfort isn't just change, it's a renewed sense of living. Every day, you have a choice. You can let routine take over, making life feel smaller, more predictable, and less exciting. Or you can push back, challenge yourself, step into the unfamiliar, and reignite that sense of curiosity that makes life truly meaningful. The truth is, growth doesn't have an expiration date. Reinvention isn't reserved for the young. It's for anyone willing to take the first step, no matter how small. Now, I want you to think about this. What would change in your life if you started applying this knowledge today? How different would things be if you committed to breaking free from the comfort trap? Most people watch a video, feel inspired for a moment, and then move on. But those who truly transform their lives do something different. They take action. And that's what I want for you. So, if this content resonated with you, don't just leave here inspired. Take the next step. Hit the like button, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning. I'm here to bring you even more insights, strategies, and perspectives that can open your mind to things most people never even consider. Click to subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's continue this journey together. Now, are you ready to break free and start truly living? Then take action, right now. Don't leave the video just yet. Since you've made it this far, I have a special bonus for you. There's a crucial warning that most people overlook, one that could completely change the way you see the time you have left. And you need to hear this before you go. By now, you already understand that as the years pass, the world around you starts to change. Connections become scarcer, independence turns into a silent battle, and the comfort of routine can quietly steal your vitality. But what if I told you there's something even more urgent that no one is truly prepared to face? Here's the reality that almost no one notices. Many people feel that something is off, that subtle signs are appearing in their daily lives, but they ignore these warnings until it's too late. Even if you do everything right to live a better life, you might be missing the most critical signals that your time here could be running out. And there's more. The body and mind often give us clues, signs that something deeper is happening, but most people only recognize them when there's no turning back. The worst part? You might already be experiencing one of these signs without even realizing it. If you truly want to understand what your body might be trying to tell you, click on the video that just appeared on your screen and find out the warning signs that this could be your last year of life. I'll see you there.